Squatters, a landlord's worst nightmare, whether you're in a tenant-friendly state or a landlord-friendly state. This is something that no landlord wants to deal with. Getting them out of there can be a headache, and not to mention costly. And the sad truth is that this is something that's becoming more and more popular in recent years.
The owners of these trashed homes all say squatters moved into their properties, caused mayhem, and refused to leave. An explosion of squatting cases is gripping the nation. In Atlanta alone, 1,200 homes are said to be illegally occupied. In Riverside County, California, a woman fights to get inside the dream house that she and her husband had just bought. In Beverly Hills, the realtor for this mansion says squatters have moved in, changed the locks, and turned this $4.5 million property into a raging party house.
So first off, what is the legal definition of a squatter? A squatter is someone who lives on a piece of land or in a building without any legal right to occupy it. They're not a tenant, owner, or someone with permission to be there. So in other words, they're occupying the property illegally. It says verbatim, without any legal right to occupy it. So if they don't have a right to be there, who came up with squatters' rights? Squatters' rights refers to the concept of adverse possession. And it's when someone can legally claim ownership of a property if they possess it openly and continuously for a specific amount of time. For instance, where I live in Maryland, a squatter would have to live in a property for 20 years to gain ownership through adverse possession. Now, if someone can actually pull this off, I'm gonna be honest, kudos to them. But for individuals that go around looking for vacant homes to move in, create fake leases, or send themselves mail to the property just to establish residency, unfortunately for landlords, they have to be evicted like regular tenants. And I kind of understand when cops are called, they have to approach the situation objectively, not knowing who's telling the truth, the squatter or the landlord. So a lot of times they can't do anything because the situation has to be handled through the courts. But instead of going through the complicated process of the courts, Marco Velasquez from Chicago had other plans.
Chicago man says he did the unthinkable when he discovered alleged squatters in his property. He decided to move in with them. Marco Velasquez is the owner of this Southside property, which is on the market to be sold. He says his realtor came by with a potential buyer, but there was already people inside.
I couldn't believe it. It was like a nightmare.
Now this is an unfortunate situation for the owner. You list your property for sale, finally find someone who wants to buy it, and turns out people end up moving into the property while it's vacant. So not only do you have to deal with the squatter situation, but you could have possibly missed out on a buyer who may be turned off by this whole situation. And that's why as a real estate agent in certain neighborhoods, I really don't like to show that I'm selling a property. I try to hide the lockbox and I don't put a for sale sign in front of the property because people are scamming and scheming. A lot of these squatters know the law, will move in and at the very least live somewhere for free for a few months or extort the owner requesting to get paid just to leave. Crazy.
Velasquez says a woman named Charmaine and her boyfriend Cordero moved in, claiming they recently purchased the property. He says the couple showed police this mortgage document, but Cook County confirms they don't see this mortgage on record. Velasquez's realtor recorded this video as the couple explained to police they had a right to be there.
Y'all bogus right now. I listen, bro.
He says police told them under Illinois' current law, they couldn't remove anyone.
So they made a fake mortgage document claiming to have just purchased the home. And even though the document was not in the county records, police still couldn't do anything. The police could literally know that the squatters are lying, but legally can't do nothing. A situation like this would make any homeowner want to take matters into their own hands. Luckily, Marco did it the legal way by moving in.
I said I'm not moving out, and I said at the one point they gotta leave. They gotta get tired of us being in the property. I called a couple of friends, stay overnight, and I knew they were not gonna like that.
So you're telling me that you and your friends came in and moved in with them?
Yes.
Velasquez says he, his wife, and their friends got a few air mattresses and spent the night with the alleged squatters.
We stayed in the living room. We were watching all the time the door. They stayed in one of the bedrooms.
The next morning, he says he realized they were not budging.
They're like, oh, well, we want $8,000.
Velasquez says they negotiated. He had the couple sign a cash for key agreement, and he paid them $4,300 to leave.
We wouldn't want to give them money, but we heard, really bad stories about squatters taking over properties 6, 8, 10 months, even a year.
So him and his friends move into the property and refuse to leave, banking on the possibility that the squatters would eventually get tired of living there with him and his friends. Now, of course, he was right, but the squatter still demanded $8,000 to move out. And just to avoid the long legal process and the headache that comes along with evictions, he decided to give him a little over half of that, which sucks. So these squatters just got a $4,300 payday for breaking the law. You can't make this up. When I look at it from the squatter's point of view, this is actually a perfect situation. Think about it. If someone is selling their home, most likely they're about to get some money. You can literally go to the public records and see how much they paid for their home, and look online to see how much they're selling it for, and get a roundabout figure of what they're going to be walking away with. At which point you say to yourself, yeah, they'll definitely pay $5,000 for me to move out. That's a quick $5,000 and there's no consequences. So what if they call the police? They can't do anything. Worst case scenario, I get evicted.
Velasquez says weeks later, a CPD detective called them, informing them that one of the alleged squatters is the same woman accused of squatting in Marcia and Carlton Lee's home after leaving his property. In the Lee's case, Charmaine Powell Gillard was arrested and charged with burglary, forgery, obstructing identification, and criminal residential trespassing. In the meantime, Velasquez says he's working with a detective, and he hopes action is taken in his case, too.
I heard stories before about squatters. I never thought it was going to happen to me.
So I stand corrected. There can be consequences, even though it didn't help out in this situation. One of the squatters had previously been charged with burglary, forgery, obstruction of identification, and criminal residential trespassing. You would think if someone's being accused of squatting and has a history of squatting, that the police would be able to do something about it, but I guess not. They still force owners to go through the legal system to get trespassers who are clearly committing a crime out of their house. It sucks that he had to pay $4,300 just to move on with selling the property, but I guess it's a good thing that the situation didn't escalate to any violence. And what happened to Marco Velasquez is similar to what happened to Flash Shelton.
Squatters took over my mom's house after my dad passed away. We were trying to sell the home. I called local law enforcement, and as soon as they saw that there was furniture in the house, they said that I had a squatter situation and they had basically no jurisdiction and they couldn't do anything. So I dissected the laws over a weekend. I basically figured out that until there's civil action, the squatters didn't have any rights. So if I could switch places with them, become the squatter myself, I would assume those squatter rights. Just in case they had a fake lease, like I hear some do, I had my mom write me up a lease. We got it notarized. I packed up my Jeep, drove up there, and paced out the joint around 4 a.m. I waited about 8:30 in the morning. 3 cars pulled out of the driveway, and I made entrance to the house. I put up cameras, waited for them to come back, and they didn't have a lease, so that never came into play. But when they came back, I just laid it out for them, told them that it was all locked up, cameras, and the only way they would get back in the house is if they broke in on camera, and I would prosecute. And I told them they had a day to get their stuff out, or the furniture was not theirs anymore.
But you couldn't have gotten them out unless they had left in their 3 cars in the morning. You couldn't bang on the door, walk in, and tell them to get out. You couldn't do that, could you?
No, the law would prevent me from physically removing them. However, being that I wasn't the homeowner, I had more rights. As a tenant, I would actually have more rights than them. So if they were there, then I would have just entered the home with a lease in hand. I would have just shown them the lease. I would have walked past them and said, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm moving in. This is my house now. And I probably would have just done anything and everything I could to make it miserable for them so that they left on their own.
After the success of getting the squatters out of his mom's home, Flash Shelton decided to start a company called Squatter Hunters, helping other people get rid of squatters in their homes.
When Flash Shelton found a squatter in his mother's home in Northern California 5 years ago.
Are you Flash?
Yeah.
I'm Marla. Hey. I'm really sorry.
He figured out a way to work around the system that often appears to protect the squatter, not the property owner. Shelton out-squats the squatter.
These people feel like the law allows them to do it, so why not me?
The squatter hunter, as he's known,
This is the woman leaving at 5:06 a.m.
targets squatters like this woman who moved into an apartment without permission while it was being fixed up. The property owner has provided Shelton with a legal lease to the apartment.
Based on the conversations and based on everything, I'll make a decision whether I'm going to literally move in with them.
Because he's now the real tenant, he can change the lock and turn the tables on the squatter.
They can't kick me out because I have a lease. So it's a game, it's a chess match.
Sometimes the squatter calls the cops. In this case, they quickly determined it's a matter for civil court, which still could take months to resolve with no guarantees.
Squatters are taking advantage of people. They just know that there's a system out there that allows them to live rent-free.
Shelton has a website, squatterhunters.com, where he offers different services, consultations, memberships. His main goal is for these unfair laws to be changed. And until then, he is dedicated to helping homeowners get rid of squatters. So any homeowner that's going through a squatter situation, reach out to Shelton and his company and see if they can help you. Both of these stories were crazy stories. But that's a wrap for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.